Hey everyone, we are going to get started in about 5 minutes. Thanks so much for hanging out, being a part of this. Super excited for the webinar. As you see, kind of cycling through here. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. If you currently use clicks, tracks, in-ears, all sorts of stuff like that. I'm really excited for this. We got a lot of people registered. This is going to be a lot of fun. So again, about 5 minutes, and then we will get started. So hang out, chat with each other. Let me know where you're watching from and if you use in-ears, clicks, and tracks. See you guys in just a second. Thanks for being here. Hey everyone, again, about 3 minutes till we start. Just wanted to come back on one more time and just say, let us know where you're watching from. Let me know if you currently use clicks, in-ears, tracks, any of the above. Looks like Rachel says she's using in-ear monitors and click, no tracks. Bob says in-ear monitors, no click, no tracks. So yeah, really excited for this. So thanks for hanging out. Again, we'll get started in about 2 minutes. Feel free to share this on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, wherever you hang out. Share the link. That would be great. So thanks for hanging out. We'll get started in about 2 minutes. See you guys in a second. All right. Hey, everyone. We're going to officially get started in about 50 seconds. I see people trickling in, but as you see kind of scrolling by, let me know if you are watching live, where you're watching from, if you currently use clicks, in-ears, any of the above. If you've seen a webinar with me before, you know I like to interact live with people. So post stuff in the comments. Andrew says he's using both in-ear monitors and clicks. Jackie is watching from Tampa Bay area. Yes to in-ears and clicks, just beginning to use tracks. Awesome. Sergio is watching from Boston. In his car driving by the bar, he's using IEMs but not click or tracks. Let's see who else. Jeffrey from Ohio clicks tracks. Les is in Honolulu. Man, Les, I am jealous. I think you were on a previous webinar, and I think I made that same joke, and I will continue to make that joke until I get over to Honolulu. So, man, thank you guys so much for joining me. This is going to be a blast. This is, I think, my second webinar with working with All Clear. And these are always fun. We always have a great turnout, always have a blast. So a couple things up front here. I see lots of comments trickling in. Again, let me know where you're watching from and if you currently use in-ears or clicks kind of as we get started here. So a couple housekeeping items up front that I always like running through. If you need to leave before the webinar is over with, that's completely okay. It's being recorded right now. As soon as this is over with on YouTube, you should immediately, I believe, be able to view it. But don't worry, as long as you registered for access for this, which likely you did, then you will get an email first thing tomorrow morning with the replay. There also will be some other goodies in there, including discounts for some in-ears and discounts for a From Studio to Stage subscription. So make sure you're registered. If you have not registered, click the link in the comments here that's going to shoot you over to the From Studio to Stage site. It's kind of like Inception. You probably went there to come here. You're going to go back there. Make sure you are registered to see that. We have a lot of people registered and a lot of people watching. I like to think it's because it's such great content, but it's probably because you're here for the giveaway and hopefully the content. If you want to know, and I'm sure you do, about the giveaway, as long as you're registered, your name is in the hat to win. We're going to do 3 giveaways during this webinar. One will be for From Studio to Stage subscription, free subscription for a year. Then we're going to pull a name for another one of those. And then the third one will be for a free pair of in-ears. And I believe we talked about a tour, All Clear tour pair of in-ears, which is a great set of in-ears. So a lot going on. This is going to be a blast. If you need to leave early, again, it's being recorded. You're going to get my link you're going to get a link to the replay in your email as long as you're registered. You also are going to get my outline as well. So as we talk through this stuff, you'll be able to follow along. I'm going to throw out a lot of links. I'm going to do my best to try to post them in the chat room. If you could see the setup I have right now, I've got 2 computers, Pro Presenter open, OBS open here, trying to monitor the live stream, a lot going on. So if I miss a link, don't worry. It's in my notes. You're going to be able to see it again first thing tomorrow. Another thing, again, I mentioned in the beginning, most of you have probably been through a webinar with me before. I like to interact a lot with the audience, with the crowd as we watch live. If you watch recorded, it's probably not as fun. So post comments, post questions as we go. There's a lot of people here, so I may miss it. And I'm going to try to scroll through and at different times and at specific times, I'm going to mention specific things. So hey, I say, let's get started. This is going to be fun. Luke is here from Ukraine. Wow. All the way from Ukraine. So again, keep your questions coming. This is going to be a blast. And again, thank you guys so much for being here. This is going to be a lot of fun. So to sum up the goal of tonight's webinar, here's what we want to do. I want to help you take your performance to the next level using in-ears, clicks, and tracks. Now, it's really interesting as we're getting started with the webinar, just seeing what people are saying. It seems like most of you are using one of the 3 or maybe 2 of the 3. I saw a few people saying, D. Kelly Jones says use click and IEMs each week. It didn't seem like a lot of people were using all 3. It seemed like most of you are using just click, but maybe, click and in-ears, or just in-ears, but you haven't done click and track. What I want to try to do is hopefully expand this so that we can talk about how you could take your performance. And I don't care what type of music you're performing, what type of music you're playing. We likely have a lot of worship leaders here, music directors at churches, whether you're playing music for a church, whether you're in a club band that tours and travels and plays your own original music. Someone earlier mentioned talking about doing cover songs. It doesn't matter what type of music you play, what place, what venue you play in. We're going to talk about trying to apply some of these principles to take your performance to the next level. Now, before we do that, I have a question for you. If you are using, I guess because all of you are doing this in different ways, if you're using in-ears but not clicks and tracks, then let me know what's the biggest benefit of in-ears to you. If you're one of the people that's using in-ears and click already, then let me know what are the biggest benefits of in-ears click. If you're using all 3, then let us know in the comments what some of the biggest benefits of you all using those things are for you. Jared says lower stage volume, right? I've done probably 2 or 3 webinars about in-ears, and that's one of the things that comes up all the time. Mark says total stage control. Use them for clarity of sound. They provide reduced stage noises. Yes, lots and lots of stuff. Lower stage, everyone's saying lower stage volume. I think that is the theme of today. So again, we're going to talk about using click in-ears and tracks. So all 3, again, with the goal of trying to take your performance to the next level. So one, why does this even matter? Why do we look at using any of these to take our performance to the next level? Well, I think the very first thing to me is using really in-ears, and then eventually getting to click, and then eventually getting to track. And there's some other stuff that we're going to talk about here in a moment. Allows you to perform like the pros. Now, what do I mean by that? So I think technology has really democratized live performance, right? I remember when I first got started, man, it cost a lot of money to run tracks, to figure out how to make that happen. It was very restrictive, right? There wasn't a whole lot that you could do. But now, instead of, for instance, let's just talk about video for a second. If you go to a show, a big stadium show, you still will see this. And this is actually a screen grab I pulled from the Green Hippo media servers. This is what we had at my church in Florida. This is from their Facebook page. But this is typically what it would take to put on a show, a big performance like you saw earlier. And what's happened is, as technology has gotten cheaper, as it's got more efficient, as it's gotten faster, it's again allowed you to perform like the pros. So going from 3 racks full of media servers to do video stuff, you can literally step on stage with 1 or 2 laptops and have the same level of performance, right? You can step into a small club with 2 laptops, and if the club has lights and it has a projector or a TV screen of some sort, then you can have your video stuff synced. You can have click tracks. You can have backing tracks, have lights going crazy, all sorts of things, again, with 1 or 2 laptops. So I think this is really, really cool because it takes, again, democratizes this. So no matter the size of your performance, no matter where you're performing, what type of music you're performing, you can perform at a very high level, right? It's high production at low cost with lots of flexibility. That's one of my favorite things about this. The other thing about using click in-ears and tracks is it allows you to perform confidently. Now, one of the things when we step on stage that is such a weird thing is you stand on stage. It's such a kind of nervous thing. It's a nerve-wracking thing, right? You have no idea what the response is going to be. If you're a worship leader and you're introducing a brand new song this Sunday, you have no idea what that response is going to be. So there's a little bit of nervousness there. If it's a song you don't know very well, it's a new song that your band just wrote. You guys just demoed it on Thursday. You're performing the next day at a venue playing that song. You're likely pretty nervous about that. And what I like about all 3 of these technologies, whether we're talking in-ears, clicks, or tracks, especially if we combine them all, it allows you to perform confidently. It allows you to stand on stage and feel confident that you know the arrangement. Allows you to feel confident that what's going to translate to the audience, to the congregation, what's going to come out of the speakers is going to sound great. So it's going to help you perform confidently. Again, put all 4 of those together, 3 of those rather, and that's what you really get. It allows you to perform confidently really well. The other thing I really like about this is it allows you, especially when we talk about using tracks, right? We have in-ears, we use click, we use tracks. It allows you to enhance your sound. So you go from, maybe a 3 or 4 piece band, and then suddenly you can add all these extra sounds in. And it's not about having a bigger or fuller sound. I hear people talk about that all the time where they say, one of the biggest benefits of tracks is having a full sound. I've heard a lot of bands that have a full sound that sound like crap, right? They don't sound very good. But it's not about having a fuller sound. To me, it's about enhancing your sound. It's about being able to step on stage and have 3 or 4 different keyboard parts, maybe arpeggiated rhythmic parts going on as your band is playing live. It's being able to step on stage and have lots of great percussion parts play along with you as you're playing live on stage. It allows you to have a string section. You probably aren't fortunate enough to be able to afford a string section live on stage with you in a small club venue or in your small church. But when you're using in-ears, clicks, and tracks, you can have all that with you, which is great. So it allows you to really enhance your sound. The other thing that I like about this is it allows you to create a new sound. So you can use sounds that you maybe can't create live, that suddenly you have the ability to play along with those, to have those. So you can add in electronic sounds to maybe synthesizers you don't have. Again, very arpeggiated parts. You can add in synth sounds to, again, since you don't have vocal effects, right? You could suddenly have your vocal going and then have some cool delay stuff built into the track. Or you could even process that stuff live. I see more and more people doing that now, processing their vocals live through their computer, which is really, really cool. Again, you can add drum loops, lots of really, really cool stuff that really lets you kind of take this to the next level. Now, before we move on, I'm kind of celebrating all this. I'm celebrating what you could do with it, but it's very likely that if you have not made this transition, that there is some sort of hesitation you have either towards getting to in-ears, or maybe you're on in-ears, but you're going, I'm kind of hesitant to go into click. Or maybe you're on in-ears and clicks and you're going, I'm kind of hesitant to tracks. There's either some hesitation you currently have or hesitation that your band or your team had before you made that transition. Let me know in the comments, what are some of those hesitations, right? What are some of the things that you go, man, we would absolutely love to do this, absolutely love to do it, but this thing, or there's that thing. Let me know in the comments what some of those hesitations are. Paul has a great one. He says, biggest hesitation in going to tracks all the time is the inability to be spontaneous. Yep. That's one I hear a lot. Let me share a couple things here as we walk through this. And again, let me know in the comments, what are some of the biggest hesitations that you have? Here's some of the ones, and it's going to be funny. You'll see some of these we've already mentioned. Here's some of the ones that I hear often from people. One, it doesn't sound like us, right? It won't sound like us. We're faking. Real people, real musicians don't need tracks, right? Milli Vanilli, don't blame it on the rain, blame it on the backing tracks. Steve, he says, my old church was that they were old school and simply didn't like change. That's a hesitation. Cost is one of the hesitations I hear. Rehearsal time to get good at faking, sounding too karaoke. Someone said that's exactly this sort of thing that we're talking about here. Great comments from people. Band is hesitant to place them in a box and not be able to be spontaneous. Yeah, that's good stuff. Cost. My band didn't want to use tracks because of the reliability, software failure, setups at different venues. Mark says he knows those dudes. Wow, that's pretty cool, Mark. So if you don't know Milli Vanilli, Google it later. That ages you if you do know Milli Vanilli. And for the young ones, the millennials that don't know Milli Vanilli. But again, a hesitation I hear often is it won't sound like us, right? We add all these tracks in, we're cheating, we're faking. Another one, this has been said multiple times, is we're on rails. We're stuck, right? We are locked in. We cannot change the arrangement. Multiple people have said the S word on the live stream. I hope there's no swearing in the chat room, but multiple people have said the S word, which is spontaneous. Now, when I'm talking to worship leaders, that is the S word everyone wants to talk about, is spontaneity. How can I use tracks and be spontaneous? And people say, well, you can't. I wish I could be more like Bethel. I wish I could be spontaneous like Bethel. Well, David Whitworth, Joe Volk from Bethel use Ableton 4 tracks and do a lot of the stuff that we're talking about and still have all that spontaneity. So that's one of the things that I hear all the time. The way I like to think about tracks is, again, a lot of people think of it as they're on rails, right? I can't go beyond the locked in arrangement. I'm on rails. Well, I think of tracks not like a railroad. I think of tracks like a highway, right? You have a path set before you. You can continue down that path. You can go straight, but then you could take an exit, right? You could go through and you could say, let's go to this course. Let's go to that verse. That's how I think about using tracks. And if they're set up in the proper, correct way, then you can have that flexibility, that freedom. We'll talk a little bit about that in this webinar. We won't go fully in depth, but Again, we'll have time for questions at the end here, so if some of that stuff comes up, which is great. All right, so let's see what else. Here's another one that I hear a lot from people. It is just too difficult. They are frustrated, right? They get frustrated. Someone earlier mentioned something about, let's see if I can find where that is. Someone, somewhere, that's a mouthful to say, just mentioned the time, the frustration of doing this. Again, depending on how you do it, learning curve, John said, is my issue. The know-how is hard to get into and can be intimidating. Even to start with, knowing how to set it up is the hardest obstacle, says Steven. So a lot of people are frustrated. So here's one thing I want to encourage you with before we move on. I want you to start thinking of Ableton. I want you to start thinking of tracks as an instrument. Now, because it's a computer, you might go, well, it's not really an instrument. It's just a computer. It's fake computer sounds. It's the musicians in the computer. But I want you to think of Ableton as your instrument. For me, as a guitar player, it took me almost an entire month, probably even longer than that, just to learn 3 chords. G, C, D. It shouldn't be that hard. I could cheat and keep my third, fourth finger down and just basically move my first and second fingers. But it took me about 3 months to get really proficient at playing 3 chords so that I could play one single song, right? Now, when I put that in the context of Ableton, because it's a computer, because it's not a guitar, a lot of times we just say it takes work. That's why we're not doing it. It's an instrument, right? So the same way you have gotten better at your vocal, the same way you've done vocal exercises, the same way you warm up your vocal, the same way you've learned your scales on guitar, the same way you've learned to play piano with certain voicings. I want you to take that to heart, that Ableton is an instrument. So it's going to take a little bit of work. But again, most of the issues I see people have, most of the problems I see people have is because of the way they have it set up, right? Or they haven't learned how to use Ableton in the correct or proper way in their environment. So Matt has a great question. He says, let's take a couple questions here, and then we have a giveaway for you. So let's see what we got here. Ellie says, how do you make it sound airy in the ears? Or Eli, sorry. Band complaints about it sounding too isolated and stuffy. Yes. So Eli, Ellie, sorry if I messed your name up. Check out the previous webinar we did called Creating a Great In-Ear Mix. I may be able to get to that, and if I can find it, I'll post a link to that. If not, I believe it may be in my notes. But check out our Creating a Great In-Ear Mix, where we dig in and talk a bit about that. Matt has a great question. I want to talk about this, and then we'll get to a giveaway here. Matt says, how do you get sound guys to treat Ableton as an instrument? So here's the thing, Matt. It's got to be a conversation as to what the goal, what the vision of this is, right? Typically, one of the things that will help sound engineers treat it more as an instrument is if they have a little more control over it. Now, the trust has to be there that you, as the MD, as the band leader, worship leader, if you're in a church environment, standing on stage, you have to be able to trust what their mix is doing and what they're doing with the stems at front of house. But one thing I've learned is a lot of times if you give them more flexibility and more control over the mix, they may treat it more like an instrument. So you separate the pads out from the drum stuff. You separate the vocally stuff, the gang vocals out from the bass stuff. And if they could start to treat it a little more like an instrument, then I think that's really going to help. Again, to me, it goes back to vision, and it goes back to our goal is to either enhance our sound or create a new sound. So this is going to be as much of a member as the band as our guitar player is, right? Now, I'm not going to tell people on stage to not play parts for the sake of leaving them in the tracks. That's one of my pet peeves, and I hear people talk about that all the time. They go to transition to using tracks, and suddenly they tell the drummer not to play so that the loop can play in this section. But we're going to incorporate this into our sound. We want to use this to either enhance our sound or create a new sound. So Matt, great question again. If you guys have questions, keep them coming throughout the webinar, but it is time for a giveaway here. So here we go. So our very first giveaway, as I mentioned, is a subscription to From Studio to Stage. That's the company that I run, the company I create that teaches you how to use Ableton Live on stage, again, for performance. We talk about using Ableton Live for tracks, all sorts of fun stuff, and how to use it. So if you are registered if you registered for the webinar, then you are immediately and automatically entered into this drawing. Now, one thing I have to admit up front is normally when I do webinars, we don't do a giveaway, we don't do a drawing. And so my registration does not by default ask for your last name. So because of that, I realized before it was too late, or when it was too late, that I don't have everyone's last name. So I have first name and email. For the sake of privacy, I'm going to not try to give away people's email address, but what's going to happen is I've got a Google sheet here with names. I'm going to sort those names. If there's enough of a name or enough of a name in the email address, I'll say your first and last name. If not, I'll say enough of your email address that you know that I'm talking about you. And then after the webinar, I'm going to email you and say, hey, you are the one that won. So our very first drawing here again is for a From Studio to Stage subscription, 1 year free subscription. Let me pull up our names here and let's get a sort going so that we could pick our first winner. Oh, and this one's an easy one because they put their first and last name in the box. So maybe this is why they win. This is why Google sorted them towards the top. And that is Caleb Wilbur. So Caleb, I will shoot you an email right after this webinar. And you have won a free 1 year subscription to From Studio to Stage that gets you access to every course that we have in the catalog, every free access to webinars, templates, all sorts of fun stuff. So congratulations to Caleb. He is our very first winner for our From Studio to Stage subscription. So congrats, Caleb. Yes, you guys are all so nice. You're not jealous, but you're telling Caleb congrats. Awesome. So let's see if we got a couple more questions here and then we're going to move on. And I want to talk about some of the benefits of this and using these things. Let's see what we got here. Again, keep the questions, comments coming. Really, really good stuff that you guys talked about. Jay says, why Ableton and not Pro Tools? Jay, primarily because Ableton is built for live performance. Pro Tools, I know some people that use Pro Tools, some people that use Logic on stage, main stage on stage, but Ableton is primarily built for live performance. For me, it's stability and it's flexibility. Those are the two big reasons for me that I use Ableton in a live setting. Worship Drummer, John says, love you, Will. Love you too, John. Up there from Canada, eh? Let's see. See what's up. We got Jeffrey says Ableton's easier. Yes, I have to agree with that. Music Man says, how do you get older musicians to adapt and learn to click, drummers especially? So this is a good point for a link to an article here. And this is actually about to transition us into one of our first sections here. So here's an article I did for Sweetwater about transitioning your band to using a click track. And this is one of the big, again, it's the first benefit to me. We're talking about in-ears, click, and tracks. But I want to talk about one of the first benefits here. I'm going to pull up an Ableton Live file while I talk so that we could talk about this. So we're talking about, again, taking our performance to the next level using in-ears, clicks, and tracks. Music Man said, how do we get older musicians? And honestly, I think this goes for any type of musician. When there's resistance to it, you have to work through that. It's all about, to me, casting vision. It's about letting them know the benefits to them. And we're going to talk about some of those benefits here in a second, which is a huge, huge thing. So let's get into this. Let me jump here. One of our first things we're going to talk about and the way to take our performance to the next level is talking about using click. So let's go over into Ableton here. And again, let's talk about how this perfect segue into this next bit here. How does using click benefit a musician on stage? One, it gives us all something to sync to. We're all in the same place. We're all locked in. Our tempo here for song one is 95 BPM, right? If I press play on this and we hear that click is giving us constant tempo, right? That click is telling every single person on stage, we're all at 95 BPM. How many electric guitar players watching? Just throw your hand up if you have an emoji hand. Throw that up. As electric guitar players, we're constantly tapping our delay, right? We're constantly tapping tempo. And if we're all constantly changing and flexing on the tempo when we're not meaning to, then man, it makes our job as a guitar player so much harder. Anytime there's any rhythmic stuff, keys players, you know the pain too, right? You're trying to play a rhythmic part, an arpeggiated part, a delayed piano part, and by doing that without click, it's almost impossible to stay in time, right? It's really, really difficult. So having that click track keeps everyone in sync on time. Now let's talk about drummers. We mentioned earlier in that comment, what do you do about people resistant, especially drummers? Again, check out the article that I linked to below that I posted in the comments, but it's all about how does it benefit me? One of the biggest benefits is it gives you freedom. So think about it for drummers. Any drummers, throw your emoji hand up. I know John's in the chat room. We talked about that earlier. Drummers, we make it really difficult on you as band leaders, as music directors, because we say, let's do this song at 82 BPM, and then suddenly let's go into this song that's at 83 BPM, right? It's difficult to adjust your brain to suddenly be at one tempo and go to the next tempo immediately, right? We want smooth transitions. We don't want dead space. So we want to make that transition really smooth. Well, if you are just a drummer and you're doing that on your own and you're carrying the entire band and people aren't using in-ears and they're not using click, this makes it really difficult. But if you are using Ableton Live, you're using a click track, then it's super, super easy, right? I could go from one song, and our first song here is at 95. My favorite thing, I could step away from this. I don't have to mess with this whatsoever. And then suddenly my next song is going to start without me touching it, right? I could add a guide cue count in. We're going to talk about that in a moment. But my song could immediately go to it. Or I could jump to that next song. And now I go from 95 to, let's see what our tempo is here. That's just ramping up, I think, to 95. This one's at 100, right? So that tempo change is happening automatically when I trigger that song or when I bring those two songs back to back. So as a drummer, this is a huge, huge benefit, right? Not having to count off from one song to the next. Again, it improves our transitions as well too. This, if you're wanting to have better transitions, this is one of my favorite moments as you see people step on stage and they, end the song, especially in a church worship environment. You end a song, it ends with a nice, beautiful pad. It's a real lovely, beautiful moment. And then suddenly, all of a sudden, you hear the drummer to count off the next song, right? And then it's just this pad and singer at the same time. It just completely kind of ruins the moment. Well, if you're using in-ears and you're using click, then your transitions are going to be greatly, greatly improved. So I'm going to link to another article here where we talk about, there we go, where I talk about the benefits of using metronome live. And again, this is an article I did for Sweetwater. But the idea here, again, is there's so many benefits to even just using click. We're not even talking about using tracks yet. Just using click, we're going to take our performance to the next level, because when we start a song, we know that if that song's supposed to be at 95, guess what? It's going to be at 95 BPM. If we want to improve our transitions, then we know that we can have incredible and great transitions, again, by just using click. We're not even talking about using tracks yet. We're just talking about using click. And if we do that, then again, that's going to allow us to do so much really, really cool stuff, which is great. And is going to make things just so much smoother. Now, the next thing here, let's talk about, again, we're not even at tracks yet. We're not even to that benefit yet, but let's talk about using a guide. Okay. So using a guide, it's the idea of using something as some sort of reference to let us know kind of where we are, either at all times or at certain times throughout our song, right? We may not know exactly, depending on how you do guides. Some people have guides throughout the song. Some people just add guides at particular moments, talking into getting in and out of particular sections. But let's talk about just having a guide and how that benefits you for a moment. And then we'll take a break here and look at some questions. So I've got this Ableton session again pulled up. And this is just a song. I want to show you, again, just by keeping click, all right? And I want to add a guide into here. Here's one of the ways I could take my performance to the next level, how I could perform more confidently, is when I press spacebar.
1, 2.
Right? I get what's called a count off.
2, 3, 4.
Now, that might sound a little silly to you or seem silly. Like, how in the world do you not know how to count a song off? You're that bad of a musician that you need someone yelling in your ears counting a song off. But again, let's go back to taking our performance to the next level. Let's go back to performing confidently. When you're at a song that's at 95 BPM, and you suddenly need to get to 120, and you want your transition to be constant. Any singers, if you're watching, you're a singer. If you start a song on your own as a singer, man, that is, I haven't been the out front singer in a long time, and I'm glad I haven't, because I don't envy you guys and gals, because you press play and you suddenly have to get from one song into the next. And if you're starting that song, boy, is that a very difficult thing to make sure you're starting in pitch in time, especially if you're transitioning between two songs. The drummer's trash canning, having that count in is just really going to help you do that. The other thing that count in really helps is it helps you navigate your song as you're going through your song. Helps you hear, okay, I'm in the verse, let's hear what this says. Chorus. Okay, I know I'm getting into the chorus. Some people even take the section cue, as I call it, and they add in the count in. So they'd say chorus 2, 3, 4, right? Again, that's another really big benefit when it comes to performing confidently. You can literally come out of the rehearsal studio on Thursday, step on a stage with your band, perform a brand new song, and everyone's going to know exactly where to go at every moment, at the exact right moment, because you have those guide cues telling you how to get from one section to the next, again, which is such a big benefit. Now, this is really beneficial to me, especially when it's a song with tempo time signature changes, right? Or I've noticed this a lot in worship music, serving at the church that I serve at now. The new trendy thing is to suddenly throw a measure of 2, but it's only at the end of the second verse, right? So going into that chorus, everyone's got to remember, do we build, or hey, it's another extra measure build, right? We really want to drive home the point in this last chorus, so we're going to build for 2 more measures. Everyone always forgets those moments, especially, I mean, again, let's talk about the worship context, especially when people are walking in, you rehearse one day a week and you do different songs every single week. It's not the easiest thing to do, even if the song is 4 chords in the truth. It's kind of difficult to wrangle everyone together. So having those guide cues really help you. And when it's a section where there's an extra build, you can literally either record a guide cue that says, hey, hold, extra build, or you can go in and you can use free guide cues to make that happen. Now let me link, again, I've got another link here that I can add for you guys. Drop this in. This is going to take you to my friends at Multitracks. Worked with them for about 4 years. They have a section here where you could download free click tracks, free guide cues, so you can drop your own guides in, which is really beneficial. Again, let me show you a couple other things here, and then we'll get to a couple questions. I see a lot of questions coming in. So a lot of comments. You guys are talking amongst yourself, which is great. I wish I could pause and chat for a little bit and come back, but we will in a second. So let me talk to you singers particularly. Again, it's really easy to watch this and think tracks are only for people that are performing electronic music, or I'm a singer, or maybe we're in a bluegrass band, or we're a gospel quartet. How in the world is this ever going to benefit us? So a story I like telling often is I did Ableton training probably now about 2 to 3 years ago with a Canadian country band. Such a thing does exist, Canadian country band. And it was a group of brothers, had incredible 4-part harmonies, maybe 3-part harmonies. Somebody be either really high, really low. Anyway, they had great harmonies, grew up together singing. And so they would step on stage and just incredible sound. But again, we talked about this earlier. You step on stage as a vocalist, especially in a situation where you're singing parts. It's difficult to know exactly who's singing what part and to start a song right on key, exactly together, very, very strong. Now, one way to do it is you could throw your vocals in the track and completely lip sync and fake it. But if that's something you're willing to do, you're likely not watching this webinar, right? If you are into doing that, you don't care about this sort of stuff. I don't care about that sort of stuff. So we don't want to just throw recorded vocals in the track and have people fake. That's not what we're after. But what we could do, again, is if we're using a guide cue, like we talked about, let me show you one of my favorite tricks and one of my favorite things that we could do is let's throw in this little pitch reference here. And basically what this is, just in Ableton, you could do this really in any software, as long as you can load in MIDI instruments into it. So whoever earlier mentioned about Pro Tools, but you could do this in almost any software. So what I did is I got my track loaded in. I do have stems here, but I'm not really using them. I'm using them to fake as if they're a band. but I just have click and guide. But what I did is I brought in a MIDI instrument and I just basically programmed out vocal parts, right? All it is just 1, 3, 5 of the chord. And then I play the part together. But let's imagine this song started off with everyone singing very strongly all together at once. This is what you would hear in your ears.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4.
And then boom, everyone's in at the same time, right? So again, imagine this, this is 1 through 5 and then starting. So it's not very impressive, but imagine a song that maybe is in a weird key or starts on a weird chord, but you need the vocals to start really, really strongly. And especially imagine you're coming out of another song, you want a smooth transition. Just doing this is going to allow you to start a song very, very confidently, whether you're a Canadian country band or you're a heavy metal rock band from Boston. I saw someone from Boston earlier. But the idea is, again, it's about performing confidently, and just literally using click and guide and putting that pitch reference in is going to improve your vocal performance so much, which is great. So let me take a couple questions here, and then we've got a couple more benefits, and then we're going to talk about how to do this. And again, we're not going incredibly in depth in this webinar, but we will, I'll take questions, and if people have specific questions on specific parts of this, then we can get to that as well too. So let's get a couple questions going in here. Mike is making fun of Canadian country bands, but I'll let him handle that on his own and defend himself. Looks like Steve's defending Canada. So Steve John, thanks you. Jay Thomas says, Will, when is the next time I'm in Miami or NYC? I don't know. If the right opportunity provides itself, I might show up. Terrence says, our guide is Betsy. Yes, I always think it's funny when people name the guide keys. Eli says, what are your thoughts on OneStreak's playback app? Eli, I helped make the app for 3 years. I love it. For me, Ableton is where I go because I need the flexibility to drop in pitch references. I need the ability to do key stuff, to edit my arrangement extensively. But if you are in a church environment and all you're looking to do is tracks, start with playback. It's 100% the way to go. Paul, one of my biggest questions for switching to tracks to Ableton was the time commitment in building up a library of tracks if you can't afford to pay for them outright. Paul, it really depends on how extensive you want the tracks to be. I've talked about this in a lot of different webinars. Sometimes it's just cheaper to buy a track than to spend hours and hours to make it. But if you make it, you don't have to go and make every single part. Maybe just start with a pad part. Maybe start with a drum loop, a shaker, instead of buying the entire multi-track if you don't need it. And then again, that doesn't take very long, especially if you're used to already producing music or recording music. It doesn't take a whole long at all. At the very least, Paul, start with click, start with guide, do that till you can afford tracks, or until you know you do want to do tracks, or just use guides as well too. Paul says, who is normally the MD role given to and why? Paul, I think it always depends on who knows the most musically, right? And who can communicate the best in the band. Now, when we talk about MD in the context of using tracks and running tracks, then the MD also needs to have a bit of an understanding of technology. And if they're going to run tracks, they need to be confident they can reach over to Ableton Live, press spacebar, and things are going to work. Or if something goes wrong, they can troubleshoot a little bit. Eli says, give everyone the click. Yeah, coming from Beat One. Yes, I agree with that completely. Let's see, any other comments here? Let's see. Mike says, that way if the laptop's sending control signals when he breaks down, the system still run independently, just manually controlled. Yeah, so let's see, I'm trying to trace the context of that. Oh, that's going to take me forever. Okay, I think I found it. What do you think about the reliability of running ears, lights through one laptop? So my band is doing it right now and it's working, but I'm worried about a crash shutting us down. Yeah, so if it's working for you, great. The question I have is, if something goes wrong, is that going to completely shut down the show, or can you keep going? And then what's your backup plan? So your backup plan could just be have another laptop over to the side, swap that out, and you're good to go. If you want full, true redundancy, and we're going to talk about this here in a moment, whether it's redundancy from redundancy just with audio and tracks, or redundancy with MIDI, all those sorts of things, you need a redundant setup. And that's where you want to get into Play Audio 12 from iConnectivity. If someone wants to search and throw that link in there, if not, I will throw that in afterwards. Couple more questions here. All right, let's see. Mike says pitch references is a solid idea. Yes, you guys have tons of questions. I'm going to have to move on here in a second, but these are really good. I'll try to hang out afterwards as too and get to some of these. Let's see. Would you use hotkeys on a computer to trigger stuff in Ableton? Thank you, James, for sharing that link. Save me from having to get it. Hotkeys and computer to trigger stuff in Ableton, or use a MIDI controller and map the functions to drum pads and keys. James, I would start with just triggering from a computer. That's the easiest, most affordable way. But then eventually I would switch to using a MIDI controller, because you don't want to look like you're checking your email on stage. And so using the MIDI controller, integrate that into your setup and use it the way you want to. See anything else here that we have. Let's see. When you have preset tempo tracks and arrangement, is it possible to quickly access a click to accompany those spontaneous moments with a new BPM in the middle of a live set? Yes. So I'm going to make sure I read that right. Preset tempo tracks, is it possible to quickly access a click? Yeah. So what I do, Chase, your boy Chase, it's your boy Will. What I do is I have a locator at the end of my set, or sometimes the beginning of my set, that all it is just a length of click, or I do click that's just looping, and then I can either tap my tempo out, or if I know the tempo, I can enter it in the tempo track. But typically I just tap tempo and do that. My buddy Kenneth, he must not be a good enough buddy if I can't remember his name, but another friend of mine, they do that all the time. They're constantly vamping and going on the fly. So they just trigger their click section and the tap tempo. You can even literally have your tracks play and tap tempo the tempo and change them live in the moment. And a lot of reasons that's probably not going to work for a lot of people and will sound bad, but it's possible and you could do that. Okay, great. So really, really good questions. You guys keep them coming. Again, I'm going to try to do my best to keep up with this as we go, but great questions. Again, we'll do another giveaway here in just a moment. Let's talk about using tracks though. So the next kind of benefit, next way to take our performance to the next level that I want to talk about is using tracks. So, and again, in our informal survey that we started at the beginning of this, it looked like most people were using in-ears, which is great. I know some people were not using in-ears and they're just kind of getting started with this. Most people were using in-ears. A lot of people were using in-ears and clicks, but there weren't a lot of people, at least it feels like in our completely unscientific informal poll, that weren't using in-ears, clicks, and tracks. So I want to talk about the benefit of using tracks for just a moment. So here's how I want to demo this. This is my kind of band in the box. Raise your hand if you know the software Band in a Box, probably from your learning jazz standards days, if you know what Band in the Box is. But this is my band in the box. And this is essentially what a good sounding 3 to 4 piece band sounds like. So we have piano, we have acoustic guitar, bass, and drums, right? So how many people is that? 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a 4 piece, right? This is kind of what it's going to sound like, okay? Okay, so again, not bad. It's not bad sounding at all. It's a great sounding band. But again, if we use tracks, we talked about 2 benefits earlier. One, we can enhance our sound, and then we can create a new sound. So let's talk about enhancing our sound for a moment. Now, if I look at this track, and again, if you happen to be a attorney, not again, I haven't mentioned this, but if you happen to be an attorney for multitracks.com watching this track is purely for educational purposes. Please do not try to take my video down on YouTube. Or if you're a copyright person for whoever wrote this song, don't take my video down. All right, here we go. So there's our 4-piece band, right? Sounds great, perfectly in time. They're playing a click, right? We could turn their click on and guide. They're playing in time. Sounds great. They've got it. Let's take it to another level. We'll turn click and guide off for now. It's not so fun to listen to. So let's keep our drums in, bass. Let's add in the second acoustic guitar part, and let's see what this guy has going on. So let's jump ahead here. All right, let's listen to just these 2 together. Okay, this is a different acoustic and a different register, right? Adds a little bit. Let's really key into the keys part. I think tracks for keys players is one of the biggest benefits. So I'm going to keep my keys player playing the piano part. I want her to play the piano part, and I'm going to supplement some sounds behind this. Let's see what we get. Okay, just adding that organ in already takes it to another level. Let's add some other key stuff in. Again, just in that moment, I mean, a low moment is a perfect example of this. We go from this is our sound enhanced with extra pad stuff, to this. right? Now, again, it's easy to say, oh, it sounds better the other way because it's more full. But to me, it's not about being more full. It's about having the right parts that really can't logistically be played live. It's very possible you don't have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 keys players that can all be on stage. Maybe you're lucky you have, your tech off to the side of the stage. She could pull up a keyboard and play keys with you live. But as we add those tracks in, you hear how it starts to enhance the sound. Now, again, there's some of the little synthy stuff that came in there at the end that starts to get us into the level, I think, of creating a new sound, creating sounds that we really can't reproduce live. And so let me play this part particularly here, and let's solo out and just kind of listen to the drums for a second. So here's our drum part. If we start right here, okay, great sounding drums. Now let's bring in this synth effects thing, bring up the volume a bit. Okay, then let's bring in this other drum loop here. Right? Now, that synth stuff is not getting in the way of the drummer. I'm not telling my drummer to stop playing anything that she's currently playing. Keep doing what you're doing, but we're just adding in these extra sounds along with the original drum part. So now, same part, let's listen to everything together. Right? We've got all those piano keys parts. I like it. We got the drum parts in there. Sounds really, really solid. Now, there's a lot of electric guitar parts in this. I'm not a huge fan of adding tons of electrics unless they're like more ambient stuff. And I'm not sure what each of these parts are. Let's listen to them and see if we want to add them. Little chimey part, little lead thing. Just for the sake of now, I'm going to add them in just so we hear what it sounds like. But again, I'm not going to add a part that my guitar player is playing on stage. I'm also not going to add a part that's maybe a lead main melodic part. There's nothing worse, and I've seen this happen before. From the worship perspective, if you're a worship leader here, I'm going to make fun of some friends of mine. The song "This Is Amazing Grace" by Phil Wickham, in the not the Bethel version, but the Phil Wickham version of that. It's got the little lead line, da 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 da. And I've seen so many people play that, and I look at the keys player right when it starts, and they just go da 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 da. Right? They're not playing the part at all. Now, for me, that's a key, and maybe we pause and camp on this just for a second. Is if I'm going to use tracks on stage, an important piece of this for me is that if there's a melodic hook, if there's a main part on stage, that's not going to be in the tracks. Or if it's in the tracks, it's going to be there to supplement someone playing that live on stage, right? So even if your synth sound isn't great, if you're at least trying to play that, but then you have the backup of having that in the tracks as well too, that's again going to create, we talk about creating a new sound, that's going to help create a new sound really, really well. But that's a huge thing for me, as I've worked with worship bands, worship teams, as I've worked with all sorts of bands that are trying to learn how to perform with tracks. One of the things I mention all the time, if there's the melodic kind of key hook, then keep that played live. You can supplement it with the tracks, but keep it played live. So now let's add some of these guitar parts back in here, and let's see what kind of sound we've got. And we'll add our acoustic back in. I think at this point we've got almost everything but the choir. I'll leave the choir off, so it's harder for the attorneys to find the track. Yeah, so you could see we've kind of taken the sound of our band, great sounding 4-piece band, and we've elevated it slightly with some extra parts. And those parts are not getting in the way of what everyone else is doing, but they're just simply elevating what's happening there. Let me run through a couple things, and then we'll get to some questions. Again, I'm seeing lots of really good questions pop in the chat here. So the next thing I want to talk about as a benefit, again, talking about using tracks is going to enhance, is going to make a new sound. But one of the other benefits to me is to have the ability to sync your lights, your lyrics, if you are doing a lyric video, and video, right? So the ability to have all those synced is really, really big. So here's a bit of a video I did at Sweetwater a couple years ago. And you could see I'm standing on stage here with Ableton Live. We've got lights, we've got lyrics and ProPresenter. And when I trigger and press play in Ableton, Ableton is controlling and triggering all that stuff, right? It's controlling the lights, it's controlling the lyrics. We didn't have video in that specific situation, but if we had video, we could do that as well too. So when we're on using in-ears and we're using Click, that opens up the possibilities to do a lot of really, really cool stuff, controlling lights, lyrics, video. We don't even have to play to tracks to do this. Talk to a lot of people that just have lights and guide cue, and they sync or not lights, Click and guide cue, and they have in-ears, and they sync stuff up even without tracks, right? It just really quickly allows you to have one laptop to control everything. A couple notes I have here that I want to mention as we walk through this, and a couple different ways you could do this. A big benefit to me of doing this sort of sync deal where Ableton is controlling lights, lyrics, video. I could program things once and then they're done, and they're programmed perfectly, and then they're done. I don't have to touch them again. Everything is in sync. Now, when we talk about doing this with video, we could do it either with LTC or we could do it with MIDI. I'll show you, for example, here. Excuse me. I'm going to pull up a file here that I have programmed just for lyric cues to show you what this looks like. And then I'm also going to throw a couple links in the chat while this guy loads up. So here's what our file looks like. As I'm grabbing these links, I'm going to show these to you guys. So let me grab this link here and post this in the chat room. All right, so this is a article. As I'm posting this one is an article I did for Sweetwater on controlling ProPresenter with Ableton Live. And then the other one here is a article or a link to a tutorial that I have on From Studio Stage that you can check out. But when we talk about controlling ProPresenter with Ableton Live, this is kind of what it looks like, right? You can have a track that pulls up specific song items, slide cues, select videos in your set, do all sorts of different things. But again, the benefit of this, whether this is lights, whether this is using MIDI to trigger something externally, the benefit to all this is that I do it once and it's done, and then it's perfectly in time all the way, which is great. Now, a couple other things I want to mention here. So when we do this and we talk about this sort of process, we can do things just internally in Ableton. So for instance, we could use a software called DMX's, a little hardware box that I open up as a plugin in Ableton Live, and I can send cues to lights. I've got a buddy that's out on the road right now using DMX's small little lighting system that the band's traveling with. They program their lights in Ableton, and then they are good to go. And what's really, really cool is you program directly in Ableton and trigger your lights externally. It's very, very powerful. If you are doing video, you could do video in Ableton as long as you, let's not save this, as long as you open up, and I'll open up a file here and show you guys this. And again, my computer's doing a lot, so I don't know that I'll even be able to press play. But if you look at this video, and let's turn some of our audio off here, I just dragged in a video file right into Ableton Live. I've got my stems loaded in here. Let's mute some of these guys so I don't kill you with audio. But then what's cool is I could jump to a specific part of the video. I can press play. Let's turn that off. Sorry, that was very loud. And I could press play, and it's going to jump straight to that point in the video, and it's going to be in sync with the click. It's going to be in sync with all the tracks. And again, I have the freedom to repeat with one button on my foot controller with my DMC 6D and jump back a section or jump ahead in a section. And my videos, again, perfectly in sync with my tracks, all just by dragging in a video into Ableton Live. And we can also do it externally. So we talked about controlling ProPresenter. We could control Resolume, which is kind of like the media server that I showed you earlier, that image. It's almost like a media server, but on a laptop, right? Or it could be a desktop PC, however you want to do it. PVP, Pro Video Player, Jan's Vista, or Vista 3 as it's called now. But we could control lots of different types of hardware as well as software, which is really, really cool. Now, one of my other favorite things to do, kind of similar concept here, is what I call the connected stage. This is the idea of having one laptop that's running tracks that has Click kind of loaded up and ready to go. And from that laptop, I could send things like tempo change. I can send presets, program changes. I've got a great article here at Sweetwater. I'll paste this in. So what's really, really cool is you could control and send program changes from Ableton to main stage to your hardware to software, all sorts of things. So this idea of the connected stage, again, allows us to have a high level performance really affordably with one, maybe two laptops. So for instance, let's talk about this. We have our laptop. We've got Ableton Live loaded in. We're ready to go. I want freedom and flexibility. Someone earlier asked, I think it was Jason maybe, or John, asked about using a MIDI controller. Can I just program on my computer? Do I have to have a MIDI controller? Well, I like having a MIDI controller again so that I can step back. I can move my computer off stage if I want to, but so that I don't look like I'm checking email on stage, and I integrate this into my setup. So I move my computer out of the way. I don't have it in front of me. And I use my MIDI controller, which is really, really great. But then from there, we can go wild, right? We can have Ableton control main stage. We can have Ableton control our SPD SX. If you're a guitar player, your timeline, your time factor, your Vista on a computer, you could send snapshot changes and scene changes to your audio console, control your hardware synthesizers to your lighting console. And again, it all comes down to knowing some of the keys and the basics. So I'll link to 2 different courses here I have on the site. And again, who was it? Caleb earlier that won the free 1-year subscription is going to be checking these out tomorrow. But you can literally go in and control almost anything if you understand how to connect gear, and then you understand basics of sending program changes from Ableton. The article I sent earlier talks about sending program changes from Ableton, which is great. So many possibilities, so many really cool things that we can do by having, again, what I call the connected stage to make that happen. Now, 2 boxes that I think are really important to make this happen. Let's pull up Sweetwater here for a second. Great way to find this stuff. So in order to make this happen, this is something that you want to talk about and make happen. Earlier, we talked about the Play Audio 12. Again, this is a great box to me. It's essential if you do a lot of work like this to use the Play Audio 12, and I'll drop this link in over here in the chat room. Play Audio 12 is the best interface if you're looking to step on stage and perform on stage. But the connected stage concept, what's really, really cool about this is, let's scroll down here, and they likely have a link to, they don't, so let me find it. If you look for the MIDI 4 Plus or the Mio 4, which is an iConnectivity product, what's really great about these boxes, let's check out the back of this. There we go. So if we check out the back of this in this Ethernet port here, what this means and what this allows me to do is allows me to connect this box via Ethernet to my Play Audio 12, so that I can send 5-pin MIDI out of this guy. I can extend this with Ethernet as long a distance as I want to. I can network 3 other boxes connected to this so that I could then, again, send MIDI back to my lighting console back at front of house. I could send MIDI to my guitar player, all the way stage left. All sorts of really cool things just with one Ethernet cable and opening up their software called Oracle. Really, really cool. Really, really cool, easy setup, which is great. So I would encourage you guys to check out these boxes. Let me post this other link here so that you guys can take a look at that. But again, if you're going to do the connected stage thing, then this is absolutely essential to me. Got to get a Play Audio 12, and you got to use those boxes. All right, it is time for another giveaway here. So again, the way giveaways work is as long as you registered for this webinar, your name is in the pot. It's in the hat, so to speak. And what I'm going to do over here is pull up my Google Sheet with all the registrants, and I'm going to randomly sort it to pick a name. As we mentioned earlier, Caleb was our first winner of a free subscription, 1-year subscription to From Studio to Stage. So he gets access to all the content that is available there for perusing, courses, tutorials, all sorts of fun stuff that's available for Caleb. As I mentioned earlier, I did a boo-boo, and when I asked for everyone's name, I forgot to get your last name. So if you happen to get picked, I'm going to do my best to, hopefully you have a last name in your registration. If not, I'm going to try to figure out your email address and not give enough of your email address away live here that I compromise your privacy, GDPR. So try to give this away. Man, I am lucking out. And our second winner also included their last name in this list. I promise I'm not just picking people that included their last name. That would be kind of funny though if I discriminated against only people with last names. But our next winner, second winner of From Studio to Stage 1 year subscription is none other than Jeff Hill. So Jeff, congratulations to you. You get our other From Studio to Stage 1 year free subscription. Jeff, I'm going to send you an email first thing tomorrow with info on how to get connected and let you know that you won. So congrats to both Caleb and Jeff on that. You guys have won. And again, look at these very sweet, nice people that are congratulating them. Mike is letting me know that he is a guy from Galaxy Quest. He doesn't have a last name. Great. All right, let's get to a couple questions here. We're going to go probably another 20, 30 minutes. Again, if you need to leave, you will get a replay tomorrow morning in your email directly. That's going to link out to this. You can see it. You're also, as long as you're registered, are going to get access to some discounts and stuff. So, all right, here we go. Let's see what else we got. Les says, I've told that I can use Dante instead of interface with Ableton setup. Yes, Dante Virtual Sound Card. Check out the tutorial I did called Using Dante with Ableton Live, which is great. Is that true with multi-tracks as well? I'm assuming, Les, you're talking about the playback app. It is true if you spend almost $2,000 on an interface that has Dante, and then you can send Dante from iOS. But unfortunately, no one, Dante Virtual Sound Card or an equivalent is not available on iOS right now, so you have to use the interface. Someone said, are all these links going to be available later? Yes, in the document. And I mentioned that at the very beginning. And if you weren't here, you probably didn't hear that, but you'll get that in the link tomorrow that includes my links to everything as well too. Let's see, what do we got? So John is talking about having Proclaim, MIDI trigger, Synth FX, Luminaire. So we use Luminaire. I have a course on the site on using Ableton to control Luminaire, which is great, which is a lot of fun. Someone said using tracks like seasoning, use them to enhance the flavor. What's there over just using ruins a good meal. Yes, absolutely. That is good. Tracks to enhance, not necessarily add whole sections you don't have. Seen this and it's bad when there's not a single guitar player and 4 electric guitar parts tracked. Yes. Again, I think it goes down to, it comes down to being tasteful with it. If it's a lead part, don't have a, guitar solo going on and no guitar player on stage. Couple of people said, can you run video and lighting using session view? Yes, you absolutely can. If it's MIDI, it runs both ways, session view, arrangement view. But when you get into automation, you 100% should use arrangement view, because when you're using tracks, you should 100% use arrangement view, because you're playing with linear content. You can repeat really, really easily. But as you start to lay out cues, you do not want to do that in session view. I did that for years, and it takes a lot of time. D. Kelly Drum says, when we use tracks, mute the instruments we already have. Tracks are playing everything else. It's great. Seeking video and lights with the band is really, really nice. Yes, so good stuff. Great questions. Slightly unrelated what MacBook. Yes, James. Email me, James Willett from studiostage.com. I'll send you a link. Everyone asks me, what is the dock you're using? What's the hub? If someone has emailed me before, you could post the link to that, but it is a great hub, a great thing to do. So let's talk about how to make this happen. If we're going to use in-ears, clicks, and tracks, there's a few things that we need to make this happen. Those 3 things are, we need some sort of monitoring solution. We are going to need in-ears, and we're going to need a computer that's running Ableton and a audio interface. So I want to talk about those really quickly and kind of walk through those, give a couple options here, and then we'll have some time at the end for questions. If we have any specific Ableton questions or anything like that, we could get to those as well too. So let's walk through a few of these. So again, at the very beginning here, I want to overstress this. You cannot do this without in-ears. You can't use click in tracks without in-ears. That's why whenever I talk about this, I always say you've got to get on in-ears, then you've got to get on click, not clack, and then you've got to get on tracks. So if you want to use tracks, you want to use stems, you've got to first be using click, and in order to use click, you have to use in-ears. So posted a link to an article I just did for Sweetwater this month on transitioning your team to in-ears. This is especially important for those of you that are in a worship environment and transition your team to in-ears. But again, I want to stress, if you're going to do this, you have to use in-ears. You can't do this without in-ears. So how do we make this happen though? Very inexpensively. The first thing you could do is use what's called a headphone amp. So this is the PreSonus HP2. This is a great solution for a headphone amp to really quickly kind of just connect this to your audio console. You want to connect it to your aux outs or your monitor outputs, depending on what console you have. And you're just going to use this instead of your wedge. Now, a couple points in this. You're going to have to redo your mix. You can't just take your monitor off stage. You can't take your wedge off stage, plug this in and suddenly use the same mix. You're going to have to redo your mix because you're isolating a lot of stuff around you, right? But this is a great, really inexpensive way to make this happen. From there, you can have front of house mix your ears. That's what we do at my church. The band has a wireless in-ear system, but kind of similar to this, just wireless as opposed to wired, but it costs a lot more money if you do it that way. But then me at front of house, I mix ears for everyone. So that's a great way to do it. If you happen to have a console, digital console, like a Studio Live, X32, M32, then those platforms all have their own app that is built. So you could open an iPhone, an iPad, mix your own ears, which is great. It's a really good way to do it. Another way to do this that I'm a huge fan of doing is using a personal monitoring mix. And so one of my favorites is the Live Mix from Digital Audio Labs. A lot of really great solutions, especially in a church context where you're trying to teach and train people to mix in-ears. Again, go back and watch some of the previous webinars we've done about creating a great in-ear mix. And I talk about one of the problems is we take people that have never been trained in mixing their own in-ears. And this isn't just the church context, the church environment. You're a band playing in a club. It's very likely maybe 1-2 of you have experience actually mixing in the studio and understand concepts like panning, subtractive mixing, how to use EQ and compression correctly. But then we suddenly give our band members control over their in-ears, and no wonder they complain. We isolate them from everyone, and then we don't teach them how to mix properly. So check out the previous mix I did where I talk about, I think it's called Creating a Great In-Ear Mix. If someone would be kind enough to grab that from the YouTube channel, that'd be great. If not, it's I believe in the links earlier that will be in this doc that I'm going to send out. If you have a Behringer M30 or Behringer X32 Midas M32, you could use the P16 mixers that you could connect via Ethernet cable. Studio Live has their ear mix, so it could be a brand specific thing as well too. When it comes to in-ears, again, you need to find in-ears that are suited for you and are specifically for you. So here we go. Here's actually our links from that I was mentioning earlier. So I'm going to grab these. We did a webinar also with All Clear on choosing the correct in-ears. James beat me to it though. Thank you, James. He's winning. But I'm going to plug this in as well here too. These are the links that you could use to check that out. When it comes to choosing in-ears, we typically think about this from, okay, if you're this position, you need X amount of drivers, but all drivers are not created equally. So you need to, if you're buying in-ears from someone other than All Clear, it doesn't matter where you're getting them, or you're getting them from All Clear, you need to look and see, okay, is this in-ear perfect for my situation? Is this in-ear created with the amount of drivers, the way the drivers are tuned? Because you can tune drivers a specific way. And if you get in-ears from a good in-ear company, they're going to tune the drivers specifically for specific use. So you need to know, okay, if I'm a bass player, how do these in-ears handle low end? If they don't handle low end well, don't get them, right? That's not a great way. If your in-ears don't handle low end well, do not buy those in-ears if you're a bass player. If you're an MD and you need to listen and hear kind of everyone's parts and what's happening on stage, then you need something that's going to represent the full kind of frequency range pretty well. If you're a drummer, if you're someone that's standing on stage, especially for drummers, you need in-ears that isolate really well. So you 100% need custom in-ears and in-ears that are tuned for isolation. Javier asked what drivers needed for drummers. Check out the All Clear website. Let me pull this up, one of the things. And again, full disclosure, All Clear is sponsoring this. Andy didn't ask me to do a sales pitch for this, but I want to show you one of my favorite things about All Clears. And I have the All Clear RSM Quad, I believe is what I have that I use. I don't know why I showed you the boxes, if that helps. These are the in-ears. And I believe the in-ears in that picture are RSM quads as well too. Here's one of my favorite things about All Clear. And again, All Clear is sponsoring this webinar, great people, but I want to show you what I really like about All Clear and the reason I went with All Clears. So Javier is talking about drums. So let's go to the RSM quad driver. Let's check this out. Ideal for, okay, so this is a perfect example. This set of in-ears is $649. That's a decent amount of money. And you would likely say, okay, I'm going to spend $649. This is great for me. But if I go here and look at this, it doesn't say it's ideal for drums. So let's pick another in-ear. And again, you're not going to go to the site and just see the most expensive is great for everything, because these are tuned for specific uses. So let's go to this 5 driver. Look at it. This is perfect. We talked about this situation earlier for low end people. If you are looking for bass, something for drums, large and loud stages, so you need good isolation, then this 5 driver is a great solution. Look, it's the same price, maybe even cheaper. I can't remember what the other one was. Or it's the same as the quad, but again, they're tuned separately. So I think we have to move away, and I'm guilty of this, of saying, okay, if you're a vocalist, you just need dual drivers. And if you're a guitar player, you need at least 3 drivers. Drummers, you need as many drivers as possible. It's not about the amount of drivers, it's how the drivers are tuned. So I love that All Clear is very transparent about what these are tuned for. Then you also get a good idea of the frequency response here. So I love these little diagrams. They're incredibly beneficial to show you, give you a good idea of kind of what the response is and how they respond, which is great. So yeah, hopefully that helps, Javier. Jay says, I'm looking for All Clears for my bass player with lots of mid and low end. So looks like these guys may be a great option for you, Jay. Of course, the mids are not as pronounced or maybe brought down a little bit, so maybe there's something better. What's great about All Clear too, just get in contact with them. They're great. They're relationship driven. If you have questions, they're going to help you find the right pair of in-ears. They're not going to try to sell you on a $1,500 pair of in-ears and say, and I'll show you guys these. I wish I got these guys. Electro 6 driver, electrostatic hybrid. But again, they're not going to try to sell you on these, because they'll even tell you, if you're a bassist or a drummer, don't get these, right? They're not great for you. And again, there's 6 drivers. So you're like, 6 drivers, there's got to be great. But that's not necessarily the case, because these are tuned specifically for specific uses. So John says best customer service. Yes, that's great. That is good to hear. Ricky says All Clear customer service is incredible. Yes. You're so nice. It's almost as if you know a giveaway is coming and you're trying to sweeten the pot, but you guys are good people, so I don't think you're really doing that. Jared says, yeah, electros sound great, but I wouldn't pick it as a drummer. And what's great is All Clear would agree with you on that, which is great. All right. So now one thing I would encourage you to do, let's pull this up. Let me move my mouse up here. Thank you guys for hanging around. Still 70 people watching. This is amazing. So now if you happen to be watching, then you're about to get some good news. So if you registered, hopefully you registered for the webinar, then tomorrow, again, like I mentioned, you're going to get an email. You're going to get an email with the replay link with my notes, but then you're also going to get an email with a discount code that's good till the end of March for a set of All Clear in-ears. Any set of All Clear in-ears except for, what's the one that they're not good for? The Versa dual driver. Those are $250, incredibly affordable. So anything dual driver and above, you can get 10% off with this code. It's going to be in your email, so make sure you've registered. If you haven't emailed or if you haven't registered, make sure to head to the link that's in the description for this video to register. And again, that's good till the end of March. And someone, Jay, how can I get a rep from All Clear to do a demo at my church? And John said, email them. Perfect answer, which is great. So really excited for that. All right, let's keep moving. So again, you're going to get that email tomorrow. So we talked about 2 of the things. We have our monitoring solution. We have in-ears. Again, use custom in-ears. They help isolate. Check out the webinars I linked earlier and to talk about why and how to help choose in-ears. That's really, really going to help. But we talked about in-ears, we talked about monitoring solution. The next thing you need is a computer, Ableton, and an interface. I saw someone ask earlier, what's a great computer? I will spill the beans a little bit. We're still in March. We're not in April yet, but at the beginning of April, I'm going to be releasing a gear guide, and particularly addressing the issue of computers, because I get this question all the time. what computer should I buy? What's the best computer that I could buy? Should I buy the new Mac Mini? Should I buy this computer? Should I buy that? And so I get the question often enough that I thought, okay, I'm going to sit down and do a gear guide to talk about what's my favorite MIDI controller, what's the best computer, what's the best computer in this range. If you're doing keys, if you're doing tracks, if you're doing keys and tracks, what computer should you buy? So many options. So I'm going to be putting that gear guide together. That's going to be available in April. If you want to see that, make sure you join the mailing list. I'm going to provide you a way to just in the email that you register with, just click a link and that's going to have you join the mailing list, follow the site, any of that sort of fun stuff. You need a computer. I would suggest a Mac. That's just what I'm comfortable with using on stage. There's a lot of great PCs that are at a low price point. If you're used to using a PC, then you're going to be completely comfortable, and they're way more stable than they used to be, which is great. You could get really great PCs that run really, really well, especially some cool touchscreen stuff. I'm envious of you Windows users that get touchscreen that us Mac users don't have. But I would suggest a computer and Ableton Live. Now, when it comes to Ableton Live, there's 3 editions of Ableton. If I pull up Ableton's site here, we'll walk through these and show you these. And I'll give you my suggestion on where to start. Okay, so here's the Ableton site. And if we go over to Live, compare editions. This is also a really useful, helpful thing to do. And I'm going to post this here. All right, there we go. So this is a breakdown of the different versions of Live. So there's 3 editions. I mentioned this earlier: Intro, Standard, Suite. What version of Ableton should you get? I always tell people start with Intro. Now Intro is pretty limited, especially if you're going to do tracks, but it's only $99, $79, $75. Sometimes you get discounts. If you do download, right? Maybe that I might be way lower on that, but if you do download, it's even cheaper than $99 if you did the box version. Intro is going to get you into the ecosystem, get you into the platform of Ableton Live. If you like it and you're ready to move on, then you could put the $99 you paid for that into the price to upgrade to Standard, which is $499 boxed, $450 download. If you like Standard, then you could upgrade to Suite. And again, you're not going to lose any money when you make that transition. So what I always encourage people to do, start with Intro and then work your way up to Standard to Suite. If you are running tracks, the version that you most likely need is just Standard. So I'm actually going to link to this here over at Sweetwater, post this in the comments for you. Start with this version of Ableton. It's going to allow you to do everything that you need to do to run tracks, and you're going to have a great experience, which is Ableton Live Standard. Again, you can get the download for that. If you are making your own content, if you want to move from running tracks to making your own tracks using Ableton for keys, it's kind of 2 paths you could do. One, you could consider upgrading to Suite to get some new sounds, or buy some plugins. And the Suite sounds, the sounds in Live 10 are really, really great. Great improvement. Really cool new instruments. I work almost exclusively just with Ableton sounds and do sound design in Ableton. I was very fortunate to do some of the sounds that you'll find in Ableton, which is great. Some of the packs for Ableton Live 10, which was a lot of fun. But Wavetable's a great synthesizer. A lot of good stuff. That's in Suite. But if you're just running tracks, start with Standard. Start with Intro. Once you know you're sold, go to Standard. But Standard is going to give you, again, the most flexibility for tracks, which is great. So, all right. A couple other points here. Someone earlier mentioned content. Again, if you're making custom content, you're making content yourself, then consider upgrading to Suite, which is going to give you sounds, or again, get plugins. If you're a worship leader watching this, you probably already know about Multitracks, but head to multitracks.com, pick up content from there, original artist recordings, tons of content. Pro tip there, if you're going to buy a lot of it, buy a credit bundle and you'll get it a lot more affordable, which is great. Now, next thing we need to talk about, we talked about a computer running Ableton Live, start with Intro, eventually get up to Standard, but then we need an audio interface. Why in the world do we need an audio interface? Well, all this stuff we talked about with Click and Guide, we need to have Click and Guide separate from our tracks, right? We can't have Click and Guide coming down with our tracks, so we need to separate those out. the way to do that is using an audio interface. So you need something that's at least 4 outputs is what I would encourage you to do. Again, this is my personal favorite. This is the Play Audio 12 from iConnectivity. I showed you the link to that guy earlier on Sweetwater's site, but it's a great interface. It has built-in redundancy. If you are using two computers and you're doing either main stage on one or keys on one and tracks on the other, then you can split this interface so that you can use 2 computers and run them through one interface without having to buy 2 interfaces. Really flexible. If you want to just do this for redundancy, and I've got a video here I'm going to try to show you. If you want to do this just for redundancy, then you can pull this guy up, and I'll show you. I've got it connected to 2 computers here. There's a MIDI controller that's triggering this, and then what happens is you step on stage, and you could set it up to where this is automatic or it's manual, and suddenly something happens. One computer fails, or I even literally just show in the video it's playing. You'll see me in a second. Let's move my big noggin out of the way. I just unplug the USB cable and the tracks keep running, right? Nothing stops. They keep running, which is really cool. So Play Audio 12, again, for me is one of my favorite things, my favorite interface for tracks particularly. This is what the back of it looks like. So this is going to give you 10 outputs. Technically you get 12 outputs in total because you get the headphone output on the front. So you can have 12 discrete outputs. Now, if you are watching this and you've got to Play Audio 12, you tried it before, you're probably screaming at the screen saying, no, you can't do 12 outputs. Well, I tried it. Well, you have to open up iConfig and separate those. That's another conversation for another day. But you could do up to 12 outputs with this guy, which is really cool and really powerful. Mike says balance outs, which basically means, do I have to use a direct box? No, you don't have to use a direct box. They're balance out. So I right now am working on, I'll show you guys, pull this up on my Instagram here. Really cute picture of my daughter building a custom output panel for a guy here in Austin that's doing a show. And I'll show you what this looked like. Oh, that was on Facebook. Anyway, building a custom XLR output panel that just going straight out of the Play Audio 12 TRS to XLR. You could build a snake, buy a snake, super easy, but super powerful, which is great. My favorite interface for that. So let's see if I got any other notes in here. Again, let's just talk about this one more time real quick. We need to get a monitoring solution. That's where we could do that Presonus HP2. We could use a live mix, personal monitor mix. We need in-ears, 100% use custom in-ears to make this happen. And then we need a computer running Ableton and an audio interface. Again, I would suggest start with intro, but at least get standard if you are going to run tracks. Once you know you're sold on this and you're going to run tracks, make sure you get standard and then get an audio interface. And again, I would suggest the Play Audio 12, which is a great solution. Now, the moment we have all been waiting for, it is time for our giveaway for a set of all clear in-ears. And if I remember correctly, I believe we're giving away the Tour set of in-ears. My phone died, so Andy maybe texts me now going, no, it's not the Tour, it's the whatever. I believe it's the Tour, but whatever it is, you're going to get for free and you're going to be happy about it and you're going to be thankful. I'm just kidding. But here we go, giveaway. So let's see who we got. Again, as I mentioned, I keep mentioning this. I'm going to try to be like a game show host where they wait till literally the last possible second to tell you who wins. When you registered, you didn't put your last name. So if a name without a last name pulls up, I'm going to say, do my best guess at what your last name may be, or say just enough of your email address that you know it's you. And then I will email you after this. So if your name is just John and your email address is john@gmail.com, good luck, because I'm not sure how I'm going to do that without divulging your email. But I'm going to do my best without breaking any privacy because of GDPR, and we'll pull up a winner. So Musician Man 23BK looking to upgrade from $30 Amazon IEMs. Yes, any pair of all clears will be a great upgrade. We'll see if you win it. So here we go. Let me go over to my list. Let's sort this. Oops. And again, I'm just sorting, and I'm going to do my best to pull a name. Hopefully it has a last name. If not, if it doesn't have a last name, then I'm going to do my best to guess your name. All right, here we go. Drum roll, please. If you happen to be watching this, I should start a multi-track with a drum roll. Let's randomize this range. Okay. Man, this one's going to be really hard to not give away their email address. But Ken, congratulations, Ken. And your last name or your email address is some combination of Ken FKYM. Ken FKYM. So Ken FKYM, if you happen to be watching this, congratulations to Ken. And I will again send you an email afterwards so that if there's like 6 Kens, Jared Koopman, something tells me I don't think your email is Ken. So yes, Ken, you will get an email right after this with, well, not after this, probably tomorrow morning, with instructions on how to get that. So congratulations to Ken. For those of you that stuck around, again, I want to let you know that tomorrow in your email, thanks for being here, you're going to get a discount code for 10% off from Studio Stage subscription. 10% off a pair of custom All Clear in-ears. So thank you to All Clear for providing that. Thank you to All Clear for sponsoring this. This was a lot of fun. So what I'm going to do, let's see, it's 8:26. I'm going to hang out for about another 4 minutes. If you guys have any questions specific to Ableton, any questions specific to using in-ears, I will hang out and answer those. And if not, I'll just sit here very awkwardly for 4 minutes and wait till about 8:30 Central, and we'll sign off. Again, as a reminder, check your email tomorrow morning. You'll get a replay first thing tomorrow morning to this, a link for 10% off till the end of March for custom set of All Clear in-ears and from Studio Stage. This has been a lot of fun. I've really enjoyed it. You guys have been great. This is our largest crowd that we've had for a webinar, which is really cool. So congratulations to Ken. Congratulations to Caleb. And congratulations to middle person. And I can't remember who you were now. I've saved it. I haven't lost your name. Congratulations to you also for winning from Studio Stage. That was Jeff. So Caleb, Jeff, and Ken, you guys are our lucky winners. From Studio Stage and a set of All Clear in-ears. So let's see, we got a couple questions coming in. Again, we'll hang out for a while. Mike says, I have a question. How are you, Will? I'm doing fantastic, Mike. Thank you for asking. I had tech issues before starting this, which is always the case whenever I do a webinar, especially when it's about technical things, but we got it sorted enough time to start. So Paul says, thanks so much, Will. Learned a lot about tracks in Ableton, compatible with DMX Pro 6, controlling lyrics, lighting, and such. I'm excited to explore this a bit more. Awesome, Paul. If you guys have any questions, I should stop doing this because I can never keep up with my email, but you guys can always email me, will@fromstudiotostage.com. I would love to answer any questions you guys have. Every Friday we post a new tutorial completely for free. We're starting some new stuff next month, so stay tuned for that. I'm really excited. It is a lot of fun. So Steven said, thanks for the info. Gonna figure this out. Great. That's awesome. Muzak's bass covers. How do you deal with multiple songs in range of view and running tracks live? I use Session View primarily. So I deal with them. I load each song into one set. I have a full set that's built. And when I press play, my tracks just go from one right into each other. I don't have to touch it. I don't have to do anything. It's super, super easy to flow, super easy to have great transitions. I have my MIDI controller set up so I can press one button to repeat a song section to jump forward. It's a super easy, straightforward way to do that. Muzak's bass covers. So if you want to go further into that, check out the site from studiostage.com. I kind of walk you through in the free tutorials as well as some of the core stuff there. Les says, where do I purchase music tracks for use in Ableton? Les, if you're talking about stuff for worship, then Paul, another moderator, just handled this. I'm messing stuff up. Paul just posted a link. Multitracks.com is a great place. So that's where I would start. Yes, thank you, Paul, for that. Jay posted my email address, which is fine. Thank you, Jay. Will it from studiostage.com, though, if you guys want to email me. Go a couple more minutes here. Paul says you can use your playback app instead of Ableton as well, too. Yes, you can. But then you just sat through an entire webinar about Ableton. What's the point? Just kidding. Again, it's funny. I get that question a lot. And I literally, I don't know the best way to say it, but I literally worked at Multitracks for 4 years and led the team that created playbacks. A lot of the features that you use in playback, I kind of helped either design or work with the team to design. So I'm a huge, huge fan of playback. Again, if you're a worship leader that's just looking to use tracks in worship context, start with playback. When you're ready to control Pro Presenter, video, add the extra guide cue stuff in that we talked about, have a little more flexibility, freedom, that's when I would jump to Ableton, which is great. So, all right, let's see what we got. Jay, is that correct? Will at from studio. Actually, that's not correct, Jay. So I'm going to delete your email address, or I'm going to delete your message. Not because you did anything bad, but I will add my correct email here, from studio to stage.com. All right. So that is my correct email address. Jay, thanks for checking. Will at from studiostage.com. And I will share the link here to the site. Again, you guys will get all this in email. You're welcome to stay on the email list if you want, which would love to have you there. All right, let's see if we get another question or so in. Jeffrey, what's the easiest, simplest way to have multiple tempos on one timeline? Jeffrey, I'm going to show you exactly the way to do that. That is a great question. The way you do that, let's pull this guy up. Here we go. I've got a great tutorial, completely free, and you get the thing you need to make this happen. You use what's called a tempo track in Ableton Live, and using the tempo track allows you to save your tempo in arrangement view, allows you to have multiple songs loaded into your timeline in arrangement view, and save all that information, which is great. So Jeffrey, I'm going to post this link right there. You can also find it on the YouTube channel if you're watching on YouTube right now, but you could go through and this thing will give you the opportunity to download a free tempo track if you want to. So that is a great question, Jeffrey. But yes, that is the not only the simplest, but it's the best way to do that, to use a tempo track. All right, let's see, maybe 1-2 more questions and then we will get out of here. Still 41 people hanging on. They probably are watching Netflix and waiting for the giveaway and don't realize the giveaway already passed. Again, thank you guys so much for being here. This was a lot of fun. If you enjoyed it and you want to see more webinars like this, either about in-ears, about Ableton, whatever topics, shoot me again an email, will@fromstudiostage.com. Would love to hear what you're interested in. Next week, I'm hosting a webinar on controlling Pro Presenter with Ableton Live. It's a paid webinar, free for subscribers, but would love to see you at that if you want to make it. Mark asked if I'm going to GearFest. Yes, Mark, I am planning on being at GearFest this year. I don't know if I'm going to teach anything, but I'm going to try to just go and hang nonetheless and get some of the Highlander grog coffee that Sweetwater has. And some delicious donuts from a local donut place that I really like. Couple reminders. So we'd love to see you there, Mark. If you're going to be there, shoot me an email. We'd love to take a picture with you. A couple reminders before we sign off. Again, check your email tomorrow morning for the replay to this, as well as 10% off, a code for 10% off all clear in-ears and from studio to stage subscription. Again, man, thank you guys so much. This has been an absolute blast. Like I said, it's the biggest audience that we've had for any of these. Which I love, not just because it's a number, but it means opportunity to reach more people, which is great. So thank you guys for watching. Again, you'll get an email tomorrow morning with all of this. Hope you have a great night. As always, as I mentioned before, if you have any questions, email me, will@fromstudiostage.com. Thanks for hanging out. I had a blast with you. Shoot me an email, say hey on social media. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.